waters are fast-moving.
Unlike other big rallies,
Bit earlier at around 7 a.m., a group from the Coast Guard.
Welcome to #PHVote 2013.
Today on Rappler.
The Philippines protests China's firing of a water cannon at Filipino fishermen at the disputed Scarborough Shoal. Senator Revilla says Interior Secretary Mar Rojas is the scriptwriter of pork barrel scam witness Dennis Cunanan. And Uganda's president defends his anti-gay bill, calling homosexuals unnatural and disgusting. Hello, I'm Chai Hofelenia, sitting in for Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. Every 25th of February, Filipinos commemorate the day when democracy trumped a dictatorship. It's been 28 years since thousands of Filipinos gathered along Metro Manila's EDSA highway to oust dictator Ferdinand Marcos. This year, President Benigno Aquino departs from tradition. Natasha Gutierrez joins us from Tacloban. Natasha?
The flag, the Virgin Mary, the flowers.
Yes, for the first time in history, President Benigno Aquino III chooses to celebrate the EDSA People Power Revolution anniversary outside of Manila. He also staged the annual Salubungan in Cebu and spent the day visiting provinces to check on the progress of his administration's rehabilitation efforts. The president hails his government's project to build back better, but he also learns of a serious problem. From Cebu to Davao Oriental to Leyte, rehabilitation is too slow, according to victims and local government officials. In Tacloban, which was hardest hit by Yolanda, only 1% of the affected community is living in bunkhouses. Victims say they feel the support of non-government organizations like the United Nations, but not of the government. This is what Aquino has to say about the criticism of slow relief and why it's taking longer than planned for the national government to fund rehabilitation projects.
Lahat lang kailangan i-bet, okay? I-bet, bakit nyo i-verify? Tama to. Kasi kailangan na yung tatayo natin, makakatulong doon sa komunidad na higit kaysa doon sa dating tinutulong itong mga iba't ibang mga infrastruktura. Sa Bantayan in particular.
But he is also adamant the government is doing enough. Aquino attends a groundbreaking for permanent housing in Panawan, Leyte for Yolanda victims and says the government is working with other countries to rehabilitate schools, as well as private companies to meet infrastructure needs like the building of Eastern Visayas Regional Medical Center Hospital in Tacloban. This, on top of the various efforts outlined by Aquino, including continued distribution of food packs, cash for work programs, and restoring victims' livelihoods.
Yung, alam mo baka dapat interviewin nyo yung mga foreign aid workers, no? UN and others, no? Dahil sila, ang parating umabot sa akin, binabanggit nung may nagkaroon na trahedya sa Haiti. O yung nagawa natin raw sa isang buwan, nagawa dun sa lugar na yon in 1 year.
Aquino does admit, though, the administration still needs to work on restoring electricity. In Davao Oriental, he learns 57% are still without power over a year since Typhoon Pablo, while bunkhouses in Tacloban have no electricity, despite the government's promise it would provide it for free. He admits they still have work to do, but denies the government is not doing enough.
We may not have been perfect, no, and I'll admit that. Pero para sabihin na we didn't exercise the maximum effort, ay, medyo over naman yata yun.
Indeed, Chai, it's an unusual way to celebrate the 28th anniversary of EDSA, but Aquino argues his decision to tour calamity-hit areas is appropriate. The president says victims embody the true spirit of EDSA by their ability to rise to every challenge they face.
Natasha, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Yes. Could you tell us a little bit about how the president was received in Leyte? Was there resentment? Was there impatience? Did they try to communicate to him what they were feeling?
Not at all, actually, and almost surprisingly, when he came, it was almost like he was being treated like a celebrity. It actually reminded me a lot of the May 2013 elections. You know, there were flags being waved, everyone was wearing yellow, everyone was cheering his name. Surprisingly, though, this sentiment is very different in bunkhouses. So I also had the chance to visit victims who were living in the bunkhouses, and the feeling is completely different from those who actually did attend his appearances. Those people in bunkhouses felt a little more, I would probably use the word disappointed. They said they wanted to see more from the government, Of course, they were grateful about being moved from tents or from the Astrodome or from evacuation centers to bunkhouses, which have a little more privacy. But still, they do not have electricity there yet. There's not enough food relief packs. And aside from those living in bunkhouses, I also talked to others who are trying to rebuild their lives on their own. And of course, those have more negative feelings towards the government. So it was actually a very interesting thing to see that stark contrast, to see very enthusiastic Filipinos in the events that I attended and being able to talk to actual victims and having a completely different reaction coming from them.
I suppose you had the opportunity to go around Leyte as well. Could you give us your own assessment based on the things that you saw yourself?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, to be honest, there has been progress in Leyte, obviously compared to the first few weeks after Yolanda, where we still saw dead bodies. You know, obviously that has been cleaned up. Bunkhouses are being built. Most people I talked to, however, said they were not involved in the Cash for Work program that the government has been boasting about. I did speak to one person who said she was working with TESTA, but majority of people said they hadn't even heard of the Cash for Work program with the government, that they had heard of other Cash for Work programs from the non-governmental organizations. And as I mentioned earlier, it's actually these foreign foundations, such as the United Nations, that seem to be doing a bulk of the work. You know, you look at all the tents that they're staying in, and they're all provided by the United Nations. Other victims say they're building their own houses, helped by private companies. Most of them do say they have accepted relief food packs actually from the government, but they also say these aren't enough. But is there progress? Yes, there is. However, I am hesitant to say it's significant progress because there's one glaring factor we can't ignore. It's the fact that electricity in the province, actually in many of these hard-hit areas, are still not back. I was driving just now past sunset, and it was mostly dark. And this is just very different from what Aquino's administration has been saying. They've been saying that Secretary Petilia was able to restore 99% of energy. That's absolutely not true. Tacloban Mayor Alfred Romualdez, in fact, told us today that his estimate is about only 45 to 50%. And of course, this is a huge problem because the United Nations itself says that restoring electricity is the first step to recovery. And that is unfortunately just not the truth for the people here in Leyte.
Thank you very much, Natasha, reporting from Tanawan in Leyte.
Thank you, Shai.
The Philippines Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, protests the Chinese Coast Guard's firing of a water cannon at Filipino fishermen at the disputed Scarborough Shoal. DFA spokesman Raul Hernandez says it strongly protests China's efforts to stop Filipinos from fishing in the shoal. The department also says 9 other instances of harassment happened last year when Chinese vessels drove away Philippine fishing vessels seeking shelter in the shoal during stormy weather. President Benigno Aquino demands an explanation from China over a report its Coast Guard fired water cannons at Filipino fishermen. Scarborough Shoal lies just 220 kilometers off the main Philippine island of Luzon. It's about 650 kilometers from Hainan Island, the nearest major Chinese land mass. Both sides engaged in a tense standoff in the area in April 2012, which ended with the Philippines retreating from the shoal. China insists it has indisputable sovereignty over the area. China claims most of the South China Sea despite overlapping claims by neighboring countries. Responding to reports of harassment, the Philippine military beefs up coverage of the disputed shoal. The responsibility over the disputed shoal is transferred to the Palawan-based Western Command, or WESCOM, which has more ships and aircraft that can patrol the high seas. Senator Bong Revilla dismisses the statements of pork barrel scam witness Dennis Cunanan. In his office Tuesday, Revilla denies Cunanan's claim that he pressured the Technology Resource Center, or TRC, to expedite the release of pork barrel funds to fake non-governmental organizations. He also accuses Interior Secretary Mar Rojas of orchestrating Cunanan's testimony. He says Cunanan is reciting from a script written by Rojas. Revilla's tirade comes a week before Cunanan testifies before the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee in a hearing on Tuesday, March 6. Senators Jinggoy Estrada, Juan Ponce Enrile, and Revilla face a plunder complaint for allegedly conniving with pork barrel scam mastermind Janet Lim Napoles in exchange for kickbacks. Professors and students of the University of the Philippines Diliman campus refused to join the system-wide academic calendar shift. They want to keep their June to March calendar. G. Geronimo reports.
Edukasyon, edukasyon. Karapatan ng mamamayan. Edukasyon, edukasyon.
As the debate over the shift in the academic calendar heats up, the voice of dissent grows.
No neoliberal education.
While most major universities and the entire UP system are starting classes in August instead of July, the UP system's flagship unit refuses to budge. Professors claim there was a glitch in the decision-making process.
Yun nga yung mali sa proseso sa aming palagay. Kailangan kasi nagkaroon muna ng system-wide forum para na ipasok ang lahat ng researchers. Ano? Kasi yung ating mga espesyalista at mga faculty naman, hindi lang galing sa Diliman yan eh. May mga taga Mindanao, may mga UPLB, ang dami nilang specialization, ang dami sana lang naipasok doon sa diskusyon.
The teachers say there's no evidence the shift matters in becoming globally competitive. The University of the Philippines has fallen behind its international counterparts over the decades. From 348 in 2012, it is now 380th in world rankings. The faculty argue almost half of the university's partners open classes between February and March, not August or September.
There is a certain deception that is taking place. None of us are against internationalization per se. None of us are against calendar shift per se. But to connect the two is for me a major deception on the part of the UP administration. And that is totally unacceptable for an academic community.
They also fear extreme weather conditions in the coming years will just make life harder for students.
Hinahamon po sana namin, hindi lang hinahamon, inaanyayahan namin ang mga administrador na masyadong matalino para mag-propose ng mga ganito, na sila ay nakabarong, sila ay naka-Amerikana, na naka-coat pa na bumaba sa kanilang mga opisina na may 2 horsepower na air condition at magturo sa summer full load ng 12 units sa 3rd floor o 4th floor na wala pong ventilation at may mga ventilador at ceiling fan, ngunit mas mabilis pa ang ikot ng kamay ko doon sa mga ventilador, at kung may electric fan man, ito ay mga dekorasyon lamang.
Student leaders also oppose the shift. They say increase scholarships first. How will they break the impasse?
Ang Diliman administration ay nagsusulong ng isang referendum para desisyonan na kung ang faculty po ba ay pabor o hindi sa shift sa academic calendar.
Shrinking prestige, shrinking budgets, and a deteriorating quality of education. These are just some of the festering issues UP faces. After a decision is reached, will the once premier university in Asia move on to solve its real problems? G. Geronimo, Rappler, Manila.
For a social media post of the day, the shift in the academic calendar caused much talk on and offline for weeks. Some embraced the change, seeing it as an opportunity for Filipino students to become globally competitive. Blue Cheese says there are a lot of international exchange student opportunities lost because our school year is different. Beth Dalton adds, if UP wants to link with other universities of the world, they have to make the change. But Jian Chan doesn't see the connection between synchronized academic calendars and global competitiveness. He says, I don't see the link between shifting of classes to being globally competitive. Countries base their academic calendar on their climate. The Supreme Court on Tuesday temporarily reverses the order of a regional trial court judge in Davao that prevents the Bureau of Customs, or BOC, from seizing allegedly smuggled rice shipments of a trading firm. The BOC held the alleged smuggled goods after they entered through the port of Davao without an import permit from the National Food Authority, or NFA. Judge Emmanuel Carpio ordered them to be released to businessman Joseph Ngo. In his appeal, businessman Ngo said the NFA's quantitative restrictions, or QR, which requires permits for rice imports, can no longer be imposed because of the expiration of the special treatment for rice importation. The NFA's power to implement QR on the volume of rice entering the country was granted by the World Trade Organization, but this expired in June 2012. Justice Secretary Laila de Lima says volume restrictions on rice imports will have economic implications.
May mga economic implications yan, implications on the national economy beyond agriculture. So I'm hoping na magkaroon ng talagang discussions dyan sa cabinet level and we want a clear policy guidance, although the existing policy now, as espoused and advocated by DANFA, which is the lead agency, is continued imposition of QR.
The Customs Bureau reports a drop in revenue on the first day of the daytime truck ban in the city of Manila. From a daily average of almost 360 million pesos, the Manila International Container Port generates only 262.8 million pesos. From a daily average of 253 million pesos, the Port of Manila reports only 134.4 million pesos in revenue. On Monday, Manila banned trucks from entering the city from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., with a window period from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Truck owners and operators opposed the ban, saying it will affect business. Let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 3, Russia denounces the West for supporting the ouster of Ukraine President Viktor Yanukovych. Yanukovych's rule ends after a series of protests plagued Ukraine's capital Kiev over his rejection of a trade deal with the European Union. Russia's statement comes as the West prepares to help Ukraine stabilize its economy. Russia earlier said it will freeze $15 billion in loans to Ukraine. At number 5, despite fierce criticism from human rights groups and warnings from foreign donors, Uganda's president remains defiant after signing an anti-gay bill in December 2013. President Yoweri Museveni's bill outlaws the promotion of homosexuality, imposes lifetime jail terms for homosexuals, and requires people to denounce them. In an interview, Museveni says homosexuality is unnatural and not a human right. He says homosexuals are, quote, disgusting, mercenaries, and prostitutes. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Navi Pillay says the law may lead to abuse of power. And at number 6, the Pentagon plans to scale down U.S. Army troops. U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel proposes to cut the 520,000 soldiers on active duty down to at least 440,000 soldiers. This brings the U.S. Army down to its lowest level since the years prior to World War II. Hagel says the Army no longer plans to conduct massive stability operations after Iraq and Afghanistan. A senior defense official says the proposed reduction in the Army would be carried out by 2017. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. 2013, top smartphone manufacturer Samsung unveils its latest flagship smartphone, the Galaxy S5, at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Josh Villanueva gives us his first impressions.
Hype surrounds the release of the Samsung Galaxy S5. There's great expectation to deliver a phone that not only looks and feels different, but also comes with the next best thing. But Samsung's Galaxy S5 smartphone isn't the stunner that we expected. The South Korean company sticks to its tried and tested formula and retains a 3-year-old design. Up front, the phone looks very much like its predecessors, the S3 and the S4, with only one aesthetic difference: a perforated faux leather back. Even its TouchWiz user interface didn't get the makeover many expected. The phone is faster and more powerful, but doesn't have one key feature that screams innovation. Two of its new features are borrowed from its competitors, a built-in fingerprint scanner and its water-resistant features. But there are a couple of features worth noting. Its built-in heart rate monitor ties into its new line of fitness watches and sports bands. Safety Assistance lets you send distress messages with 3 quick presses of a power button, sends you disaster warnings depending on your location, and can switch your phone's mode to last up to 15 days. And there's a new and improved 16-megapixel camera with the world's fastest autofocus on a smartphone. The S5 also includes a 1 by 2.6-inch image sensor that affects the quality of photos. The larger, the better. The Galaxy S5 will be released globally in April. Josh Villanueva, Rappler, Manila.
Every story on Rappler has a mood meter, which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. Click on how you feel, and your vote comes down to the mood meter in the middle of the front page, which crowdsources the mood of the day. It also gives you the top 10 stories with the most clicks. So for today, let's look at our top 10 stories. The biggest circle right here in the middle is a story on PMA Cadet Kodia. Did he lie? Document shows detail. So 61% are angry about this story, which is actually one of the most popular stories on our site. 61% are angry, 10% are sad, 8% don't care, another 8% are amused, 7% are annoyed, and 1% are happy. Another major story was a recent story by Josh Villanueva, which is a technology story. This is on the Samsung Galaxy S5 hands-on smartphone, which according to Josh was a bit of a disappointment. And then another major story here is this flesh-eating illness in Pangasinan, a hoax, says the DOH. This was actually, well, according to some of the comments, a very alarmist story, but the DOH silenced whatever connections this story has made with prophets and prophecy. So it's not true, so let's not pay attention to that story. But 43% of people are happy reading that story. A big number, 33%, are annoyed. 6% are afraid. But all in all, I think for today, most people are angry. That's Rappler's newscast for today, Tuesday, February 25, 2014. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Jaene Zaplan. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.